Hello and welcome to Season 4 of the Sunday Podcast, presented by sportsshoes.com. I'm Ollie Lum.
And I'm Matt Seddon.
This podcast is all about elite distance running in the UK.
We're here to give you all the latest news updates around the sport,
as well as weekly interviews with athletes and coaches.
Stay up to date by following us on Instagram and X at Sunday Podcast.
And make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel too, where we post athlete workout videos, shoe reviews and more.
Thanks for listening, and as always, we hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, welcome back to another episode. It's that time of year again already. Highgate Night of the 10K PBs coming up next Saturday. So what would that be? What's the date for that, Matt? 18th of May.
18th of May.
18th of May. Matt's commentating again. They've invited him back. What's that, third year, mate?
Third year in a row, yeah. Me, James and Ellen. So buzzing. Thanks to Ben Poachy and the team down there getting us back. So obviously looking forward to it. And I think just to get things going, I mean, we were waiting for the start list to come out so we could get this, so we could record this episode. And I think I went through it, and 31:15 is the slowest race this year. I was just like, Jesus, it won't be long until you're going to have to be a 30-minute guy to get into that race or show kind of that level of form. Like, I was just like, bloody hell. Like, I mean, I only, my first commentary was a couple of years ago. Obviously, it's been going a lot longer than that now. But 12 years now? 2013? No, 11 years, sorry. But even when I commentated 2 years ago, there were races in sort of 32, 30, well, actually slower, I think 33, 34 minutes. So yeah, to see 31:15 is the slowest race at like 1:30 in the afternoon, the depth has just gone through the roof.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that does derive from kind of Ben Poachy's original kind of inspiration for the event. It was the fact that there was nothing else was out there, not even just kind of at the top level. There was no 10Ks on the track really in the UK for people to kind of target. So I think that's why anyone who wants to run a time has got to make sure they're at Highgate every year. And it's the reason the depth's improved. If you are interested in kind of hearing more about how the event started, we recorded with Ben a couple of years ago now, episode 75 with Ben Poachy. If you want to go back and listen to that about kind of the history of the event, if you haven't already. But yeah, we are in store for some good races, aren't we? Because obviously it's Highgate. Obviously there's lots of people going for their own PBs, and there's also an international field as well. But the main thing for you guys listening, I'm sure, and for myself and Matt, is the official trial for the Paris Olympic Games in the 10K. So super excited to see who books their spots on that plane.
That's what we'll be focusing on today, that's for sure. And yeah, goodness me, mate, where do we start? I mean, both races are going to be paced pretty much kind of bang on those standards. The women's A race 30:40 and 31:30. And the men's A race 27 flat and 27:50. So yeah, at the front they're on the Olympic standard, and that second pacer kind of right around that European mark. And don't forget, we have got the Europeans, and I think we're going to focus on those Olympic spots and to see who's going to take them. And on the men's side, will anyone take one? But then on top of that, I think it could be good because we could see people getting those European places banked and see them in Rome in what would be 3 week turnaround.
Yeah, absolutely. And we definitely want to see people getting those British teams because I think there's a few people who are lining up, particularly on the men's side, who could definitely go to those Europeans, and I think use that as a bit of a stepping stone into maybe Olympics next time around, for example. But let's go over those standards once more. So yeah, 27 flat and 30:40 are the world athletic standards. And then British Athletics have said they'll accept people if they're in the World Athletics rankings quotas, if they run under 27:20 or 31:10 for men's and women's races, respectively. So there is a chance, isn't there, for some of them to get in on those, but we've been kind of doing a bit of the maths, or Matt has, I should say, and it's going to be tough, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, and I think, look, I mean, we'll start with the women because we've got 3 women inside that standard. Well, 2 women inside the standard, McColgan and Keith. McColgan from way back last year when she ran 30 flat, that incredible run. And I don't know, have we seen her since? I don't think we've seen her race since. I can't remember if she snuck out another race. She might have done a half a couple of weeks after that, because she was
Mm,
supposed to be doing London that year, but we haven't seen her race since. Speaking with Ben a little while ago, Ailish was in touch. They were talking, and she was kind of supposed to be doing it. She hadn't fully committed at that point, but it was looking likely she was going to do it. And obviously, start list come out, she's not on there. So very difficult because one of the, you do one of the headaches for selection criteria is you have to show current form. So I'll be interested when she gets round to doing that. Because also the exciting thing now is by the time Highgate rolls around, there's 6 weeks until that team's selected on the 30th of June or 31st of
mm.
June. So I mean Keith is a banker. She's been flying over the 5 and the 10. And I think I think she is going to be the British champion on the weekend. And then you've got Judd, who is on points in the quota but sits in 25th, so a bit of a risky position to be in. So she would probably like to bump herself up those rankings a little bit. What's that going to take? British title always helps because you get 60 bonus points on top of your time score and your place score if she does win. So she's currently got 1,275 points. And I think like to be properly safe, maybe you're looking at sort of like 1290, something like that.
Yeah. I think she'll be okay. Just to clarify, there's 27 allowed in those 10Ks. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Judd
So,
currently in 25th. Okay.
but mate, let's break it down because it's 27 spots to go to the World Championships. However, people again, and I remember saying this a little while ago, the cross country rankings are massive. They accept 8 people on the cross country, and when you actually do a deep dive on who these athletes are and how good they are, you'd be stunned. You'd be absolutely
Mm.
stunned. So there is a lady from Belgium, no, sorry, Netherlands, Vel Baker. Um, Probably made an absolute hash of that pronunciation, right? Um, guess where she finished at Eurocross? And she currently has enough points on the cross country ranking. She is in the World Athletics quota. She is ahead of Jess Judd. She's like 22nd to go to the World Championship. So she'll probably be there, right? And she finished 37th place at the European Cross Country Champs in Brussels. 37th. And on top of
Bonkers, isn't
that,
it?
like she hasn't, mate, she's done this Belgium Cross Cup in Hanout. Seems to be in January. Seems to be mad points there because like Jan Scrub, it's the same on the men's side. But she only finished fourth there. But it's a gold label cross meet, and yeah, it's got her enough points. And with the cross as well, I almost feel like you get these eight like that was an 8K course as well. So there's a little bit of a I just don't know how relevant that is to attract 10K. So, but what I'm trying to say is there's some people on the cross ranking and it's the same on the men's side. I think when I looked at the men's side, it was around about a kind of 2730, 2740 guy was in the world cross, was not in the world cross, sorry, in those cross country rankings. So it's the top 8 on the cross country outside of
Mm.
obviously those top boys and 3 per country. So actually you do end up going quite far down. Um, yeah, and so I'm just thinking, I actually feel like if you went to that Belgian cross in Hanout, if you ran well at Eurocross, say top 5 especially, I was thinking of Hugo Milner sprung to mind immediately. I think someone like that next year, if he medaled at Eurocross and then went to Belgium and had a good run and then, potentially wouldn't even need to go to a World Cross, I don't think. It's only 2 races, 3 races you need. So, and then found another gold label cross he ran well at. He could probably bag enough points to go to the World Champs.
Mm. Yeah, it's definitely something for athletes to think about in terms of getting their way in. Obviously, from a British perspective, I think they'd still be asking them for the time. Is that right? Would British Athletics say
You
that?
make a good point, actually. I mean,
Obviously,
yeah,
other countries aren't, so they'd be
yeah,
allowing them in. Whereas
sorry.
I presume British Athletics would still ask for that 2720 or that 3110, which is a bit of a shame if obviously other countries are allowed to do that. But we'll see again if that changes in the future because I do think they're getting even just having these times now that are a bit slower and they're allowing people in rankings is a bit of a show towards kind of being more open to the rankings from British Athletics and UKA. So we'll see what happens there. Obviously, someone that might be springing to your minds might be Abby Donnelly, who has had some good cross country performances. Matt and I still think that she would probably need to win the British champs at Highgate to get enough points maybe to get her in the quota.
I think yeah, I think Abby Donnelly is really up against it unless she got a I mean, she's a long way behind. What is she? 60 points behind Jess Judd. Sorry, no, goodness me, 120 points behind Jess Judd. And Jess Judd's in 25th.
Mm,
Donnelly would need to run a performance that would get her 1,300 points. That would equate to, ironically, pretty much inside that 30, well, actually quicker than that 30-40 uh qualification mark anyway. So Donnelly, basically the only way she goes to the Olympic Games and pushes out Chad, Keith, or McColgan is if she goes and runs inside 30-40 and comes top two on the day.
mm, yeah, so we'll
So
see how
because
that
points wise,
unfolds.
she won't be able to get enough points, even if she, yeah, she needs to run inside 30-40 in order to get enough points because obviously they take your two best performances. She's got a road 10K from Valencia as well. That didn't give her that many points. So yeah, points wise, she's in a tough position.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Right, let's get into some of the start lists then, because I feel like we've kind of skipped about them a bit. But anyway, looking at the British fields, kind of top Brits on the men's side, probably Charlie Wheeler, Paddy Dever, Charles Hicks, Zach Mohammed's in there. You got the likes of Roy Leonard, Paolo Surafel, Ellis Cross, and Scott Beattie as well. To finish that lineup, and then as already mentioned, Jess Judd, Megan Keith, Abby Donnelly, and then we got like Verity Ockenden, and athletes like that in there as well on the women's side. I'd say what we're looking at in terms of international athletes helping them along towards those standards. Obviously, got Paul Chelimo on the men's side. He obviously won last year 27-12. So sure we'll be looking again to get close to that time too.
Yeah, mate. I mean, I don't know what Chilimo's expecting, what he wants, because yeah, I mean, when you look at the American 10K running right now, and Chilimo needs to go. 27-12 is not good enough. He needs to run inside that. If he's going to go, if he's going to realistically qualify Olympic Games, he needs to run inside that, let alone try and place at his champs, his trials.
Mm,
Um, points wise as well, he hasn't really got enough points. And again, ironically, for him actually to move up on the rankings when it comes to points, he just needs a fast time under his belt. Which would be the standard. Similar to Donnelly, actually. There's some instances where it works out okay. And there's others where, yeah, you just basically have to run fast and that will give you enough points.
yeah, for sure. Are you backing on the men's side, mate? Obviously, Paddy Diva going in as a big favourite, I'd say, and probably the only one with a shot of going to Paris.
British wise, I would probably agree with that. Yeah. I mean, Hicks is down, and Hicks I'm excited to see. Look, what did he run? 13:30. Now this was interesting. I watched it. He ran 13:30 in the pissing rain. The race was set up a little bit with the Bowmans. Um, and it was last weekend in Oregon. And when he finished, he literally walked across the line, went straight over to Jerry. Like he was not tired. And when I was watching, I was, oh, maybe he's gonna raise it this last K, and stuff like that. He just didn't.
Mm,
Which kind of indicated to me he's pretty much all on his own that last two laps, was it? Mohammed was doing a lot of the pacing as well. But yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is I think he did a pace job. He basically just ran 5K at race pace last week, I think.
mm.
Unless he actually was going to go for a quick five and the weather was awful. So he was like, "Do you know what? I'll just run this at 10K effort." But yeah, and he made 13:30 odds look pretty comfortable in the pissy rain in Oregon. So don't count him out because I do feel like he is someone that we haven't seen run that quick over the five, but for me, he's much stronger over the longer stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout. I think I guess anyone who listened to Canova's pod over the past couple of weeks Canova would tell you that you don't need to be ridiculous on a 5K to run a 27-minute 10K if your training is up to it. And Hicks definitely someone with his kind of cross country pedigree is someone that definitely thrives with some of that strength work as well. Charlie Wheeler obviously in there as well. He's a bit of an unknown over the 10K. Obviously had some impressive 5K performances recently. To boot, he's told me he doesn't mind me quoting that he thinks he'll probably win the race in 27:12. So he sure is confident going into next week.
He reckons 27-12 is gonna win. Well, yeah, maybe then. I got to admit, looking at the men's field, um, someone who I actually think is a bit of a dark horse is that Norwegian guy, Cabron, Terry
Mm.
Cabron. I mean, I saw him in hopefully he's not too tired 'cause I saw him in Copenhagen last week doing a pace job out there, but boy did he look easy. Jesus Christ. He went quite a long way at sort of 208 speed. So whether that's took too much out of his legs, I don't know, but he's someone who has pretty good pedigree in order to kind of contest for the win. Samuel Barata of Portugal. He's a sub 60 half guy. He's been training in St. Moritz. I think you'd start to look at him and feel like he has a realistic shot of like winning the whole thing. And Carlos Mayo as well. Like, Mayo's on fire right now. He's done very, very special things on the road. Carlos Mayo. So he's another guy who's broken 60, 59, 39 national record. When was that? Like in Valencia last year or so. And don't forget, he ran pretty well. I remember a couple of years ago when it was in Birmingham, sort of the COVID year, ran pretty strong
Mm.
then to Euro Cup. So, um, yeah, whether he can get down to like that 27 flat, it would be amazing to see someone go 27 flat. I'm not quite sure. Not quite sure we've got it on the front end to see a 27 flat. Mainly because
Yeah,
I'm just not sure. I mean, maybe there will be a few of them actually.
I think it just depends what they all go after because I think there's a lot of people in there, and we mentioned Europeans earlier that going after the going after limit time is sacrificing the European time. So
Well, I mean, I don't know. European standard, I think, is 27.50. I don't think that will. You mean for people like Wheeler and stuff like that if they pop?
yeah, for sure. Like,
Yeah.
and I just think I think you soon know after the first couple K whether there's going to be enough of them really wanting to get on it.
Yeah, I mean, I always remember like in these races, all these guys have great stats on paper, but we just can't forget that it is a 10K and things go wrong like they do in the
Mm.
marathon, and it's the same every time. 5K and then see who's about it. I remember last year it quickly deteriorating from 5K and then, Chilimo was having to churn out. I mean, he probably would have run 27 flat had he had company last year. He
Yeah,
churned out 3K solo. So if we see something like that again, uh it's gonna be awfully difficult for those up at the front. But yeah, so Brits wise, I mean, obviously quite excited to see what kind of people like Roy Leonard, Ellis Cross, and obviously got Wheelie, got Paulos as well in there. I'm pretty sure they are the only you Scott Beatty, sorry. So you've got Beatty, Wheeler, Cross, Paulos, Leonard, and Hicks and Dever, and I think that's it for the Brits. There's just
Zach
seven of them
Mohammed
in
as
there.
well.
Is that Mohammed in there as well? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Oh crap! Yeah, yeah, Zach Mohammed. Yeah, how have I missed him? Yeah. So, God, he's someone actually. Phew. He could put on a bit of a show. But he hasn't run too well his last few races, has he?
Mm. It's exciting though. I do think it's exciting just looking at this British crop on the men's side compared to the British men we had in last year, and that's no disrespect to them. But I just
Mm.
think the way we're moving on in these distance events is really promising.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. So let's get into that Britfield a little bit. What's Paddy Dever got to do to qualify? Well, kind of had a little go. It's quite confusing, but had a little go looking at the points and stuff like that. He'll get 60 bonus points if he wins. Those behind him, if you get 50th, if you get second at your national champs, that's 50 bonus points. Third is 45. Now Paddy isn't even on the rankings because he's only got one 10K. You need two 10Ks to get on the rankings. Um, He needs he needs about 1,240 points to get inside that top 27. Now he's on that run he ran a few months ago, 27:08. Believe it or not, that only got him like 1,212 points, which is crazy. But if he has a run which is similar and gets that British Championship bonus, obviously that's going to add up to sort of 1,280 points, which would take his average to about
Yeah.
what 1,240, something like that. So that's basically what he's going to need to do. He doesn't need to run, and I think that's quite a nice position. He doesn't need to run 27 flat, inside that time. But in order to get into the rankings, I'm not sure 27:20 and winning will be enough points, or inside 27:20 and winning will be enough points to get
Mm.
inside the quota. Because don't forget, there will be a few people behind him as well who can always, it might nip inside him.
That's it. You don't want to be sitting in 27th, do you, on that quota? So it's
Well, and then you see with the marathon this week, what are these universality places or something? Like the marathon, they just chuck in all these countries like Uruguay and places like that. They just chuck in loads of guys, and basically, if you were sitting 80th, you're now not going to Olympic Games because loads of these kind of other countries who allowed one athlete per sport have now chosen to send them in the marathon. So if you basically, I think you had to be inside the top 72 or something. Sort of 8 countries put their person in the men's marathon. So there's all sorts of drama over Leonard career. And so it will be interesting to see kind of how that unfolds. I think there's some
mm,
disputes going on there as well, to be honest with you.
yeah, it's I feel like our sport used to be so simple in terms of you need to run a time, you need to come top two at your trials,
Yeah,
and that was it basically. But yeah,
yeah.
these points are making it confusing. Maybe it's more exciting. I don't know. I'm not 100% convinced yet, but we will see. Yeah, mate, I think Paddy Dever's got a good chance. And I think if the likes of Hicks, and obviously the international field as well are pushing him on, I do think he can get down to that sort of 27:10 mark towards there again, which I think would be enough. So
Mhm. I think it would be if he wins British champs, but just to say, people behind him, um, Charles Hicks is obviously behind him. Hicks, with his points, he has to basically go run sub 27 if he's going
mm,
to go to Paris. To be honest with you, he hasn't got enough points. Um, so Hicks, Ben Flanagan, strong Canadian. Again, he's behind. He's outside the quota. Um, Jonas Jonas Reese, Switzerland. He's half decent. Louis Grijalva, if he chooses to do the 10K. I mentioned that Zeri Cabron from Norway. Again, like if these people go and run the standard, they're all going to have to these guys are probably all going to have to go run. Their points are too far down to do anything with a 27:10. They're going to have to go run instead of 27. But obviously, if they do that, that then makes it even harder for someone like Diva. He's going to need even more points.
mm.
So those are just a few names. I mean, I think Cripper's going for the marathon, isn't he? To be honest with you. But Jack Rayner as well, he's another one who's outside. So yeah. I mean, Gressier is someone who's sitting in 26th. And he's what do you run? 27:05 on the road or something stupid not too long ago.
Yeah, but road times, mate. Not
Right,
convinced. Not convinced.
I'm getting distracted. I'm trying to sort of break down how the road to Paris. But yeah, I guess British race, mate. Let's give a 1, 2, 3. I think Diva takes it, no questions. I think Hicks rolls in for second, and actually, I'll back the boy Wheeler. I think Wheeler rolls in for third.
I go Diva, Wheeler, Hicks. Hicks tries to run the Olympic standard and pops. So Wheeler takes second.
Mate, I love Wheeler, but there's just a few question marks for me over his sort of mentality when the race gets a bit further. Because he's just a bit of a ballsy runner. I think sometimes it costs him when he does a 5K because he's almost a bit too brash. And
Mm.
so I feel like with a 10, he's going to get even more giddy and excited. I could see him riling up the fans early on.
Do you know who's going to win the B race?
Huh?
Do you know who's going to win the B race? Hands down.
Yeah, Wheeler number
George
two.
Wheeler.
Yeah.
Disgrace he's not in that A race.
I don't know, mate. I don't know. I think he'll
They share
admit himself.
PBs, don't they? They share PBs.
He'll admit himself he's quite happy with the B race. To be fair, mate, the B
He's
race has
actually
got
better.
people like,
He's George Wheeler's better over 10K than Charlie as well. So
well,
watch this space.
by the way, the B race has got people like Hugo Milner in,
Mm.
like Scott Sterling, Will Cross. Who else is in it? Julian Wonders, international. So the B race is pretty hot still, actually. Um, yeah, some big names in there, and the depth is just ridiculous. It really is. So yeah, that's the men's 10. I mean, is there anyone that we haven't mentioned? I mean, Jan Scrub, I guess European cross champ. He's someone who actually currently has a cross country placing, probably rightly so. But again, his 10K is only, I think he's on 27, 25. But yeah, he did get bronze medal at European Championships in 2022 over the 10K. So I feel like he
For
could
me, if
actually be
you're
something.
for me, if you're medaling on the cross, like world or Europeans, I think that's fine. I think it's when we start getting points for other non-championship races that are just gold
Yeah.
label or getting like a, I don't know, 10th, 15th. I think it becomes a bit
Mm.
irrelevant. But I
Honestly.
think I think yeah, a European or a world medal over cross country definitely should be worth its weight.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
yeah, you're right. I mean, and he is someone I think on his day, he hasn't really done that many kind of fast track tens, but I think on his day, like he's probably a heavy favorite actually going into this because I could see him running close to low 27 if not inside. How strong he is. And like actually he's done it at like championship level as well. And I feel like that counts for even more. Often gets overlooked because you haven't got a flashy time, but you know if you
mm,
can grind it out in the championship on the right day, you're going to be so much better than those people who have run a flashy time, but you've beat at a championship. So yeah, so I guess like someone like him is probably a really really strong favorite going into it. Um, got a couple of Norwegians. I mentioned Cabron, but also that Magnus Meyer. He's pretty smooth. I remember a few years ago he was sort of running alongside Jakob on the cross, looking bounding along. So yeah, there's your men's race in a nutshell. That goes off at 9:25. Did we mention this obviously on the BBC Red Button and BBC Sport website? I think the coverage starts at 8:30, which is pretty much when a women's race starts. So it's just the two elite races actually, men's and women's.
I quite like that. I think that's a nice little kind of coverage package for the maybe not for people listening to this, but for the general fan that might kind of stumble across it.
Mm,
I think that's quite nice actually. Just two elite 10K races, men's and women's, British
mm.
champs, done and dusted. Let's get into that women's race then, which will be kicking off kind of that coverage. Obviously, we've mentioned Megan Keith. Is anyone going to challenge her? I mean, it seems crazy
Well, for
that
the win.
I think a year ago, if we were saying Jess Judd wouldn't be challenging Megan Keith, then people would say we're crazy. But at the moment, Keith is just on fire, isn't she?
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think for the British win, she takes it comfortably. Um, and you know what? Like this, I mean, actually, it's probably a race that she wants to do and tick off the bucket list, actually. But it's also probably a bit of a race. She's like, oh, yeah, just like she's in such good form. 14:43, 30:36. Like she's just ticked off those big markers. And so I think, although she'll be excited, it's a British title and everything like that. I feel like, perhaps sort of when they're looking at the longer term for the season, they're like, oh, it's probably a race they could do without, to be honest. But I think, yeah, she goes there and she wins.
Mm. How does she stack up against the international field on the women's side?
Yeah, well, I'd probably say the heavy favorite is the Ugandan lady, Joy Cheptiek, because she ran 30:03 in Valencia, which is just ridiculous. Um, and I think she was 18th at World Cross. Um, so, again, that's like a pretty strong run considering how filthy uh, that World Cross race was this year. Like,
Mm.
so much depth. Like, what was it? Same Nigetic, he ran 28, 40, 47 or whatever she ran on the 10K. She was obviously, I think she only finished fifth or sixth at World Cross from memory. So, like it was a sickeningly good field. So, But yeah, I think she's probably the heavy favorite for me on paper. But you never know what it's going to be like. Her track times aren't amazing. She's top eight at the 5K at the World Road Running Champs, stuff like that. So she's got pedigree. And you just think, yeah, she's probably gonna run away with it.
If you're Megan Keith, do you just chill out, get the job done, make sure you win, auto qualification done, or do you push on, try and get a new PB, really try and win this race?
Do you know what? She probably will look at it and go for a PB, to be fair.
Mm,
Just because I think the opportunity is there. And again, like if you go to the front of that race or you're like competing for the actual win and you've got Megan Keith beat the Ugandan Joy Cheptegei, I just said, like, mate, the crowd are gonna go bonkers. Like that place is
yeah,
gonna erupt. Like just to have a duel like that. I mean, I'm throw it back to Commonwealth Games in 2022 when it was McColgan and I can't remember who she beat that day, but and they were going head for head and like the crowd just going bonkers because like that's what they want, those just jewels, don't they? Like it's all coming down to the last lap, like that sort of thing. So I do think if she's in contention for it, it's going to be absolutely epic for the meet. And yeah, so she will go for PB, and I think with the pacing, let me just double check the pacing, mate, just make sure I get that right. I've got it in front of me, but with the pacing being actually at 30-40, she will be up at the front and with them
mm,
comfortably for quite a lot of the race. And then, so I think there will be a couple of them. Also, someone I didn't mention was Mabrat Gide, who talking at World Cross, goodness, finished 10th at the World Cross. Ethiopian lady, just 19 years old. Again, doesn't have much pedigree on the track, but see what she can do.
yeah. And Megan Keith's PB obviously 30:38 from what 6 weeks ago now over in the States.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm sure she'll be looking to rewrite that. Behind her, probably looking like Jess Judd for second place, and hopefully as well, just making sure she cements that place kind of in the team for Paris as well. Obviously getting second place and then topping up her ranking points too. I mean, Jess Judd though, like she could like get after it and actually go for the kind of the 30-40 time proper. It's not outside of her abilities for sure. I just
No,
don't
and
know
like
don't know
obviously,
what quite shape she's in.
yeah, and obviously in Valencia, she got so close, didn't she? She'll be awfully frustrated with that,
Mm.
with kind of that result. But she's in the quota, and I think she'll be pretty calm about things at the moment. And yeah, I think she definitely will just wanna get after it and try and hit that standard. The only concern was when she obviously 10K she tried to do it, the 10 she DNF'd, but other than that, I actually haven't seen too much from her. I know has she been up at altitude? I think St. Moritz maybe. Or warm weather training, one of the two, but I think it's altitude. So see how she
Not
fares.
sure, not sure. Maybe we should say on this podcast she's having a rough patch because then she'll bang a big time like she did
Yeah, that's
last
true
time.
actually. Yeah, we'll write her off, mate. Yeah,
So
she's
yeah, so Jess, if you're listening, yeah, we don't think you're going to do it, which means you would definitely run 30, 35, or something
No, but I
outrageous like
think the
that.
nice.
So
I think one of the best things for the women this time around is actually we're going to have. I think there's going to be a group in that race till quite
mm,
late on. I mentioned the Ethiopian and Ugandan. Obviously, Keith, you got Judd as well. Like I don't think there's any way Judd just doesn't go with that pace and just sit there. There's a few Americans in there who are quite handy. They've run 31:15. Emily Lipari, Steph Bruce. I mean, Chiara Di Matteo apparently has been in touch. She's not on the start list yet, but she's someone who her agent's been in touch with Ben, and she might appear on race day. So there's a few people who I think will feature in that top group, which will be
mm.
as a Burundian athlete as well. So I think it's good for people like Jess to kind of have that company because she is someone who enjoys just going to the front and starting to just like push things. So if she has a bit of help later on, I think it's only going to help her.
Yeah, and she is also someone you mentioned the crowd that will thrive off that home British crowd as well.
Oh yeah.
And if she's involved, then they'll be getting crazy for her as well. So yeah, super excited races to look forward to both on the men's and the women's side. So yeah, make sure get yourselves down there if you can. But obviously that stream is there as well. Saturday, 18th of May, at 8:30 in the evening. Matt, that pretty much wraps up Highgate, but we did have a couple of races we wanted to kind of catch up on. Obviously, we had the Diamond League last night, for when we were recording. Just a few British results to get through there as well.
Oh yeah, mate. Yeah, that was actually good. What I love the Diamond League, man. Like the atmosphere is crazy. It's slowly becoming one of my favorites. And again, like people talk about it as like properly kicking off the Diamond League season. I know we had those couple of races in China. But yeah, it really does feel like that for me as well. That it does just get things rolling, and get the season going, and you start to see some of the big hitters. But I guess what women's 1500 was probably the kind of standout race with Bell, Walcott Nolan and Courtney Bryant in there. And perhaps look, it was windy, wasn't it? Even in the sprints, saw like plus 2 meters a second, so it's a breezy old day. But that women's 1500 was just messy, messy.
Mm.
Um, Pushing, shoving, and so actually, like Bell
What
and
happens
Walcott
when Laura
Nolan.
Muir's not in the field? We said this before last season. I think you made the point that Kipyegon goes, runs a crazy time. Laura Muir strings it out for everyone else chasing her, and that's why they've all been running so quick.
Well, look, it happened yesterday. Was it that Hailu girl who went with the pacer, and then
Mm.
you've got the rest of the race who were just hesitant the whole time. Even people like Jess Hull were hesitant, and yeah, I remember saying last year that like people like Jess Hull were having such a good season because Laura Muir was the one bridging that gap every time. And then look, you would have thought someone like Jess Hull would be able to sort of, yes, the first lap was quick, then it slowed, and like I think there was sort of like 207 at 800 or something. Jess Hull would be that one to like bridge the gap, but she didn't. She left it to some Kenyans and Ethiopians, and they didn't bridge the gap, and it just got really messy in that kind of chase pack. And so, actually, with the Brits running 403, I think they'll be pretty happy with that. Courtney Bryant came out the back door a little bit 408, but again, season opener, so
Yeah, I think
I don't
the
think any.
it's Reve's run. I think is really strong because obviously we haven't seen so much of her in the past couple years. Before 403, sorry, really good starting point, and obviously she did go to the last Olympics, so she's coming back into form, kind of a good time.
Yeah, and but then you see the pre-fields be announced, and you're going to see Snowden and Muir, and you're like, Whew, Jesus, what are those two going to go run? So
Mm.
yeah, there's a third spot there for someone, but the way Snowden and Muir are running, I think the top two are so strong. But actually, saying that we say Muir, she might be. She got beat last year at champs, and maybe there is a little bit of chink in her armor. She ran that. I think we mentioned it, didn't we? That 15 or 15:20 or something at Dulwich. It was a undulating course, but yeah, I don't know how happy she'll be with that. I don't know.
Mm. Yeah, I think moving over to the 800 then. Obviously, Riki 158 got second, behind Mora. I think that's a pretty good run for Riki, and she's someone who's definitely kind of back to her best, isn't she?
Oh, mate, and again, I'll talk about the women's 1500 being messy. The women's 800 as well. Like to be fair to Riki, I mean, I don't think she's beaten Mora whatever happened yesterday, but I think she's running her a little bit closer if she didn't get in such a mess with like 150, 160 to go. Like she was in a great position. And then just two girls swing wide, and she just had to go so wide with 120 to go. And like at that stage in 800, and she used all her energy getting up onto Mora's shoulder. And then Mora just, I mean, Lum, you were giving it big, and before we started recording, you were like, it's a bad time to be Keely. She's she's not winning the Olympics this year. And I was like, literally, Mora's done one race in 157.9. Like,
I just I feel like it's I want to be wrong, but I feel like that it's just like that second place curse. I don't know,
for me, the
just a
the
few
danger,
times now,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. The
yeah,
danger with Mora as well is the fact that she just seems to be able to run. Like she can run a really messy 800.
mm,
Which I think when you're an athlete who has that in your locker, it's like those two Algerian blokes, Sajati and Mulai, is it?
mm,
And like when they they can run a really messy 800. And I feel like you can just get yourself out of trouble so much. And so if the final just like one or two things happens through it, and that's all it takes in 800 to cost you, chance of gold. And so if you can cope with one or two things going a little bit wrong or just being slightly off on your positioning, then you've just got a better chance at, I guess, just being that bit more consistent and being able to respond and claim victory. But yeah, that's what's dangerous about Mora. She just seems to handle like the most ridiculous race scenarios.
She's phenomenal. Like there's not another 800 runner like on the kind of circuit at the moment, men's or
However,
women's, that is like her. You know.
I do think you just make it hard that third 200 and you just ask the question. She thrives on this whole like going again at the home straight. And like she probably does have the best kick in the final 100 when you're kind of full of lactic, but she would have to like Keely could pull away from her in that third 200.
Mm.
If it because I say more likes an Messi 800, she does, but actually she just likes running it that way as well. And I feel like if you did just squeeze that third 200 and really ask the question, and maybe you had a thing move for company alongside you, and you two were kind of battling, you could probably run away from her.
I think that's the key. I think if a thing Mo is there and is running some of these races like we saw a couple of years ago, where she's front running at 155, then that's where you ask the questions. But I don't know. I think that's a big ask to go, and if you're Keely to go do that. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm not writing anyone off, but just
When's the
interesting
thing?
start to the
Yeah,
season, you know.
when's the thing me racing? Hey, that's what we want to find out. Um,
Um, before
presumably,
before we get
actually,
onto that though,
yeah. Sorry, mate.
Giles, mate, was the other Brit. 333, 1500 meters opener, not bad. It is crazy, isn't it, that we're looking at that now and we're like, yeah, good. But almost, yeah, I know it's only May, but it's nowhere near, is it? What you need to make that British team. I'm not saying he's not going to, but I think it's a tough ask.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I said about Diamond League being the kind of start of the Diamond League season. I think the pre-classic is, where the big dogs are coming out, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because that's where we're going to see Gawley Whiteman and Kerr. That's where we're going to see how kind of they're shaping up. Um, Also on that women's 800, Hodgkinson, Moo, and Bora are all going to be at the pre-classic as well. So yeah, with Giles, I thought that was a pretty solid run, but I think he only needs to run a tiny bit quicker to get that standard. And I just think always with the threat with Giles again, like the way British Champs is two heats and two races, and the heat is really easy at British Champs
Mm,
for those guys, like it is. And for Giles, the heat is even easier because they run
yeah.
60s and then they close in 39. They do it every year. Like I can't tell you how many times I've seen that race play out, and it gets won in 3:39. And so I'm just like, for Giles, the heats are so easy for him to negotiate. So he's just got to be in contention in the final. And again, the final is relatively similar. It plays out in the same way. Like we haven't seen a quick British champs like a 3:35, 3:34 British champs final in some time. So I would be quite worried if I was I mean Kerr you think is safe, but because of obviously just being, world champion, and that third spot will probably go to him whatever happens.
Mm,
But if you are Gawley and you are Whiteman, like you are just starting to think, like they know they're better than Giles, but like maybe Giles won't like hearing that. But they know they're better than him, but at the same time, just in that British champs final, coming off of a heat that hasn't tired him out that much, and just like it will probably be run in the best, like it will probably suit Giles the most. And it's just like,
yeah.
that's just a headache. So
Yeah, I think you make a good point there. Um, and that's without talking about the likes of Stonia, George Mills, Jake Hayward.
George
Throw them
Mills,
into the
yep.
mix. Obviously, Stoner and Hayward have had their injuries, but they are the sort of athletes as well that kind of come British champs, like you wouldn't be surprised if they just come out, they race, and they're ready to go.
Yeah. 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 I mean, Hayward needs to get a few under his belt, mate. Like, he's been out too long.
Mm,
I think Stonier as well. Like, Stonier needs to get a few races under his belt. We need to see what he can do. Um, like we know what they're capable of, but you've got they've got to run themselves into 331 shape, really. If they're going to contest, they've probably got to be in that sort of shape um on the day. And so they've got 6 weeks to do it. And they haven't even opened their seasons yet. So yeah, it's a tough position for them to be in because really, you're not going to race 4 weekends in a row, are you? But really, I do think you need about 3 or 4 races to actually get ready for something like that.
mm. Depends, doesn't it? I do think the expectation, not the expectations, but the kind of norms of top athletes now though is a bit different than it used to be. I do think that used to be the case, but I think nowadays some of the training these athletes do and the kind of training environments they have where they're able to, I don't know, run a K or run a 12 at race pace or at Olympic qualifying pace and they have those people around them, they have these environments where they're able to do it. They are able to come out and just know that they're ready to run the standard, and then all they need to do is just go to the trials, and they're ready to race. I think the sport has changed a bit in that sense. I think anyway.
Yeah, but for me, that doesn't. I don't know if that helps you. Like, yes, you can go and do a 1200 time trial. You can do all this race simulation stuff. And yes, if you got into a really fast race, you'd probably be prepared for it. But in a championship setting, like the British champs, I just don't think,
Mm,
like, I don't think you're that prepared for it. The only way you get prepared for it is if you throw yourself in some physical, some scrappy 1500s and you cope with it.
mm,
Um, to be honest with you, and someone, and Hayward is just we're big fans of the guy, but he's just been out for a very long time, and I struggle to sort of bring him into the talking into the discussions when we're talking about like who's going to the Olympic Games. I mean, I'm interested to see who goes to European Championships coming up as well, who actually gets selected for that. So because again,
yeah.
that's something like I would have thought Hayward and Stonier would have been quite interested in going to that. Um,
Well, I think we
those
set them up nicely to then go and do well at British champs.
yeah, but they haven't even opened their season yet, so.
Mm,
But I guess it takes one run. You just need to get in a fast race, don't you? So,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah, that's pretty much it for the Diamond League and for the previews. Obviously, Bannister Miles as well. Matt, do you wanna give your perspective on that as you obviously there on the day?
Oh well, I hope everyone's like gone back, watched the stream, watched the races, seen it all on socials. Because yeah, I mean, actually, we were just talking to training today. Probably one of the best domestic mile races in the country that we've seen. I mean, I think the Elmslie car is going to be back in the London Diamond League this year in July. But yeah, the past few editions of that have been pretty poor. The one at Highgate was pretty solid actually, but I guess feel like that's well, yeah, it should live in the Diamond League actually, shouldn't it? But yeah, and to have four guys sub 4 in wet conditions as well, it's peeing down all day was epic. And mate, just the event in general, like how often can you go to an event and like credit to people like El Garouge and I had some great chats with Noradine Morselli about him and his obviously older brother coached him. Um, Having chats with those guys and like they're so open. They want to talk about running. They want to talk about distance running, and they
Mm,
just and also what the amazing thing was they were very interested in actually what was going on and watching the races and like those were the guys who were like trackside watching things play out. Whereas some of the other VIPs, I won't mention names, but they're happy to just sit in the VIP tent and sort of soak up that side of the event. Whereas actually I was surprised in like people like Philbert Bailly as well. They were just really open to just kind of offering their advice and talking about their career. So yeah, I thought that side of to have them in an infield in a race, like what event could you go to, period, where a 4:20 mile, I can go and have a discussion with Elgar Rouge, the world record holder, and say,
Mm,
like, and actually ask him questions about running, and they can just talk, as mates almost. Like, there's nothing like that exists in the sport. And so, yeah, that was just really, for me, that was really, really special. And I think a lot of people there enjoyed that side to it. Plus, the racing was epic, and flipping hell, Meslick. I mean, if he was British, he would be a headache for a lot of people.
mm,
Because Jesus, he pissed up a 3:56 1 mile. Um, getting the crowd going on the home straight, was peeing down, and he just looked so easy. Did I don't know what he ripped after, but did some dirty session on the track after as well. Pinging around doing some 200s. So yeah, but saying that, he didn't start the Diamond League last night, but yeah, that was not to be sniffed at. James Young as well. Shout out to Max Wharton, one of the OG listeners. He broke four as well. So yeah, it was a solid day out. Women's race was epic actually. I guess they don't have the same lure when it comes to a barrier like a time,
mm.
but Kai Malanga, Beth Morley, Shipley, Megan Davies, Lauren Church, all these girls going like toe for toe down the home straight, which was just fantastic. That was actually a really exciting race as well. So, yeah, I'm already looking forward to number 71 or 71-year anniversary, and hopefully it can just grow as well. It can just be bigger than even the 70th.
Yeah, absolutely. And that wraps us up today. So thanks very much for listening. Enjoy Highgate next weekend, and we'll catch you on Sunday.